Hey gamers, welcome to an episode of Hyper Ripe featuring Patrick and Casey RPGaymer style. The gays are here, the boys, and we are going to talk about Final Fantasy
16.
16. Now, Casey, Jason likes Final Fantasy, but I don't know if he likes it as much as we do.
Yeah,
But
I would
think
say
it's
you like
different.
it the most because you've played all
Yeah.
of them. I have not played all
Jason's like the early half of Final Fantasy, you're the later half of Final Fantasy, and I'm everything but 13.
of them. Aw. You put it out. Out in the
I
cold.
like 13 too.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that. I actually haven't played all of it, just the first few hours.
I had a better time playing 13 2 than I did 13. But we're not here to talk about that game right now.
Nope.
We're here to talk about the trailer, the state of play that Sony put out for one game. Do they
Right?
normally do that?
Sometimes.
Is
It happens on occasion. I was a little surprised, to be honest. But it was a
Yeah,
pretty,
I
it was
was
a pretty
too.
good little. It kind of. I didn't feel like anything was super new, but it was still exciting to see new footage.
I thought maybe they were like we were getting a full state of play, and then this was going to be like the ending 5 minutes
Oh, sure.
of it. So the fact that it was a full 30-minute ish, like I know it was exactly 30 minutes, but
20,
30-minute
yeah.
trailer, yeah, was honestly kind of silly because they just kind of showed the same thing
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
Yes, and there's a
Like,
few
it
parts where it's like you could cut this like 2 minutes ago. I don't need to see you walking through the forest for this long. It's pretty, but you know,
Mhm.
I just and they've already shown a lot of it at like I think PAX East a month or two ago. So it's
Yeah.
not all of it, but it's just it was a lot of familiar things. But
Let's actually start there because you said it's pretty, and I
Yeah.
think going through our usual hyper ripe episodes, we're gonna kind of pick apart the things that we think we liked and we didn't like. So hyping would be this was a good thing.
Hell
I'm excited
yeah.
for, and then ripe kind of to me doesn't necessarily mean
It's
bad,
bad,
but to
yeah.
me like it maybe it needs more time.
yeah,
Like it needs some fixes, kind of like if your banana isn't ripe yet, then you kind of needed to let it
let it
ripen a
simmer.
little more, let it sit, or maybe it just smells ripe and it is bad. But yeah, let's get into that. Let's talk about the graphics. This was a hype for me.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
is beautiful. Yeah, like all of the God, there was that one part where it was showing like I'm assuming the 4 crystals, like it's a Final Fantasy game, and they're like enormous, and it showed the
So
cities that
big.
they're around. It was like, wow, and then
I'm-
wow, and then the next one's like,
Jesus Christ!
wow, yeah, like just beautiful. It's like kind of being on a fashion runway. Like the game, all of it is beautiful, and even just the simple places were really beautiful.
Yeah, and it's the first game from maybe not from Square, but for Final Fantasy that's going to be just on the PS5, so they're really going to be able to harness the power of the PS5, and because there's so many games that are still coming out for the PS5 that's also coming out for the PS4 or the Xbox One and the Xbox, so like this is something that's truly just a PS5 game. So I'm really excited to see what they're able, like how far they're going to push Final Fantasy 16.
It really does make a difference. Like, so I was fortunate enough to get a PS5 at launch. I don't really know how, like, witchcraft. Scott is a wizard, and we got Dark Souls.
Oh, right.
Demon Souls,
the remake.
right away. Yeah, right away. And it is exclusively PS5. And I played the original Demon Souls on PS3, and I knew it was going to be an upgrade. And even like coming off, Elden Ring wasn't even out yet.
Yeah.
But like Demon Souls is beautiful. And like the special effects for everything and the sound, you get the impression that it is a step up from a lot of other games. And I don't necessarily know if I felt that even for Elden Ring. Like Elden Ring is also a beautiful game, but it has that like PS4 magic making it work.
Totally get
because
what
it was built for both. Then so I
Right.
think that's kind of what you're saying. Like
Yeah,
here's another
absolutely.
game that is just PS5.
and later PC, but
wow.
PCs are amazing, so
Yeah. What were some of the standout scenes for you for the graphics? Like this is a hype for you as well.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely a hype. I really am excited to dive into like the more like lush green foresty jungly areas, because I don't feel like we've seen that a ton in the more modern Final Fantasies. Like 15, there obviously you're in the big open world and there is a lot of green, but it isn't like super lush. It's like very open, but I'm excited for these more enclosed, kind of foresty.
15's very the desert.
Yeah,
you know,
there's
like,
some
for
smatterings
a
of
lot
green,
of the
but
game.
and I'm excited for towns. I know there were towns and cities in 15, but I think 16. It seems like maybe they're gonna succeed even more in that department with places to explore and things to see and things to do.
I hope so. I liked venturing into the cities in 15, and they did feel a little more like cities. You know,
Yeah. I just
I'm
wanted
curious
more
to see. Yeah, I mean, like the best part of I think any Final Fantasy game where you get to experience a true city, I think, is like in Midgar. Final Fantasy VII, where you really feel like this is a lived-in area, especially the part in like the remake when you're running through those earlier chapters where you really get to see like all the people living and they're just kind of doing their own thing, whether it's working or playing on the streets with the kids and whatnot. I'm curious to see what they do to make that believable in this game too, graphically. Like I think like that kind of goes in with it all. I'm not sure if you noticed this for graphics as well, but I wasn't completely sold on some of the NPCs.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of genericness in general. Even I mean, I know Clive, the main character, is supposed to be sort of like an everyman to some extent, but like he's a little bland looking. I mean, they couldn't even give him a crazy...
Well, I mean, he's a main character too.
Yeah,
like
but like overall,
he definitely is very samey. Like he fits in the Final Fantasy universe in that he is very Squall, Cloud, Titus, Noctis. He's definitely one of those. But I even mean like there's when they get to the part in the trailer when you're talking to some of the merchants and whatnot, I wasn't completely like wowed by the way this person looks. So I'm seeing a lot of great graphical details when it comes to the world, but I don't know how I feel about the people.
I think what I wanted more was like larger personalities via their like clothes. Like the face, whatever, it could be generic, but like I want some like more identifiable, exciting kind of like going on like everywhere else. If their face is boring, you can at least give them like a fun outfit and make them stand out in that way. But it was very like sort of generic, like here's this blonde white woman in a long beige dress with like a bun on her hair, and it's like give her something a little more exciting.
I kind of feel the opposite. Like I'd rather have someone fit into the universe and maybe be a little bland,
like more authentic.
But they're still expressive, and I think that's for me like I know there's the whole meme about is it Sid in Final Fantasy 15 and how Sid's
the gal, she's the busty mechanic gal.
And she's very busty and whatnot. But and like Southern. There's just certain posturing that she does where like she'll move and like there's just she's animated. And even what's the name of is it Jill? In this one?
Sure. Yep, Jill. Yeah, the
female and when she's like, Clive, I haven't seen you in so long, and like her face is just so like there's no expression whatsoever. And I was like,
girl,
not
go back to the motion cap studio.
Yeah. Also, graphically, the Moogles and Chocobos and monsters look really good. Yes,
there's the scene,
and I.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Oh, there's a scene, I think it was near the end of the State of Play, which they've shown part of it elsewhere, but it's with you're going to have to help me say this, the Marlboro, is that how you say it?
It's Marble in this game, but it's like Marble.
You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, like, we had seen part of that scene before.
It's smoking cancer, the smoking cancer monster.
but it shows, like, like that scene opens in the state of play with like a creature falling and landing in something's mouth, and then it shows that it's that.
Totally,
and
it's
like,
a goblin.
Yeah, and I was like, that's cool, because like we had seen the guy before, but we hadn't seen that little snippet, and that made me excited.
It makes me excited anytime a Final Fantasy includes classic Final Fantasy monsters.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily the summons, which those also look incredible.
Yeah.
But just the classic, like the goblins look like Final Fantasy's versions of goblins. You know, 100%. Like you said, the Marbol. Why am I struggling?
I can't say it
always
either.
say it. Marbolo, whatever.
Yeah.
Looks great. The Moogle
so
felt
cute,
very like
chubby,
fitting. Yeah, loved it. It was very like reminiscent of Mog. That was really good. The chocobos look really good. So graphics are a check.
Yes, 100%.
What's next? What else do you want to talk about?
The world. I think we've kind of alluded to it a little bit with some of what we've talked about, but I'm
you can't really talk about graphics without talking about the world, because they go hand in hand. But I mean, like, there's more to it than that. So
yeah, one thing that it wasn't necessarily in this. Well, I guess it's sort of present in the state of play, but something that came up a few months back when Square was doing some press for Final Fantasy XVI. IGN specifically, they asked about like the lack of like POC in the game, and they were like, oh well, it's in like a European type world, so there's not really people who aren't white there. And I kept finding myself thinking about that a little bit while watching the state of play, because I think most people we saw were white, which is I get what they're saying, but it's a little sad and unfortunate, because it's a fantasy game.
It's a weird split in that sense, where like on one hand more inclusion as much as possible, on the other hand it's a fantasy world,
right?
And you
have Moogles and Chocobos and
our standards
with bunny ears.
Yeah, they're putting our standards on like a fantasy world. But I also agree, like, it would suck to be in any form of minority and not see that representation. And you even Final Fantasy 13, which is terrible, you see different representation of characters. So like, why not here? It would be easy. But what else for the world? Like, overall, do you think the world was a hype or a ripe for you? Because for me, it was a hype. Like,
I'm really excited to explore
it.
I'm excited about fast traveling. I'm excited about if I don't want to fast travel, because sometimes I don't like to do that in games. I just want to, especially if there's a mount, I want to be able to ride my chocobo, or even just run around and find things. And there's definitely going to be side quests, which I'm excited for.
We were talking about how it felt like world-wise a Final Fantasy again. And that is something
very
that
fantasy.
About,
we're
like,
back to those sort of fantasy roots. 15
and I'm
was
sure
a little
there's going to be
steampunky.
like a little bit of steampunk.
Yeah. But no flying cars with a radio and Florence and the Machine singing to you.
Right. Well, I mean, that one I would be okay with.
And good.
But there, like, we're not seeing like a lot of guns and mechs, and they could be there, but at the very least, you don't feel like you're seeing like this heavy industrial part. Like, you're seeing a fantasy world, and that had me very hyped up too, because like I get really bummed in Final Fantasy VII with just how mechanical everything is.
Sure. Yeah.
In the remake, and like, it's nice to see that variation of everything, like caves, waterfalls. Like, you really get to see graphically the world being pushed to its limits. So I was very excited to, like, I want to explore. I like games where you go and explore. And it kind of reminds me, there's this meme going around where, like, gamers right now, and when there's like a waterfall in a game, get like when a game has a waterfall in it and it has a chest behind it or a cave behind it, they say like, oh, it figures, but like when it doesn't have anything behind it, they get mad,
so
because
cry and so angry.
Because like, oh, you had a waterfall and you didn't put anything behind it. So like,
it?
That's kind of how I feel. Like, I want to be able to explore these places, and like, there aren't many games where you get that feel, where you're just kind of like, I think Elden Ring might have been the last one for me, where it was
Sure.
like, I want to go to this place where there's probably nothing and find
Oh.
out that there is something.
That's
what this kind of felt like.
I experienced. I mean, you played Forbidden West, Horizon Forbidden West, but that I thought
Yeah.
that game was pretty successful with that as well.
All right. What else, Casey? What else are we going to talk about?
What do you think?
What's another big one.
What are your thoughts on the shift to a total action RPG? I mean, we've kind of known, but like they used that phrase yesterday in the State of Play, saying like the first total action RPG for this game.
I am okay with Final Fantasy going action, though.
Yeah.
I do love turn-based RPGs, and like I do want to see them more, and I think there's still room for them. I think people will still love them. I don't believe in this like we're a fast-paced culture, they're dead. Like, it's fine, but if they want to make an action game, that's fine. However, I felt like this is a very flashy game.
Yes, there's a lot
in terms
going
of like
on.
And my bigger issue with the combat is you really only get to control and build one person.
Yeah, I'm bummed. You even get guest members, but you can't control them. Torgal, the dog, you can like give commands to, but that's probably the closest we'll get.
That's it. And I don't understand why it couldn't have been like, I think Final Fantasy VII Remake did it best, because it
so
was
good.
very, it still had a turn-basiness to it, but you could take control of the other characters, so it wasn't this one character had an infinite number of playstyles. To me, that's going to be very overwhelming, and that's where I struggle in open world games like Elden Ring, where here you are throwing tons of spells, tons of abilities, tons of loot, and different ways to build your character. And I struggle with picking like 3 choices, and there's probably going to be like a ton of choices. So that concerns me with just the focus on one character.
Yes.
But also, it felt like the battles are going to be a slog, because if you notice in most of the battles, when the character is like actually hitting, it's very like flashy cool moves, but that hit point bar is
I noticed that too. I didn't really think of that necessarily as a bad thing or a good thing. I noticed it, but in conjunction to like how much you're gonna have to do, how many buttons you're gonna have to press to make like a serious dent. I am excited.
Did you play Biomutant?
I did not. Someone I used to write for, we reviewed it, and I knew it was going to be bad before it came out, so I was like, I'm not going to get it.
So there's this point in Biomutant where, like, when you were fighting things in Melee, you feel like you're hitting them with a pool noodle.
Oh no!
Because the inputting is wrong, which I'm not going to say that about Final Fantasy. It seems like the inputs are fine, but like also the health or the damage that you do is so minimal that like you also feel like you're just not really hitting them with anything. And that's kind of how I felt here, where if you have this game that seems like it's super soaked in realism because of how nice the graphics are, I shouldn't be hitting like a soldier 100 times to kill him. Like that doesn't
that's a good point.
Make sense to me. So like I'm sure the combat's gonna be really snappy, as we've seen, and I think in some capacity it is cool that you're gonna have like a lot of different ways to build your character with, you could be slinging spells or different swords and whatnot, and NPCs helping you out, but like I don't know, it to me it's a little bit of a ripe. Like I don't know how I feel about this completely, because again, it just seems like too much style over substance.
Yeah, I would say I'm a little bit more on the hype side. One thing that they mentioned yesterday, well, they talked about it previously during some press, just with the accessories you can equip to sort of make battling or like fine tune how battling works to your playstyle, and they have an accessory that lets you slow-mo things. And it looked very, the little clip they showed in the State of Play, it seemed very reminiscent of Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I love the like ability to slow down to like select your stuff if you had that option on. So I'm really looking forward.
But do you think that was important for Final Fantasy VII Remake?
Yes.
Because you had multiple characters.
Yes, and
kind
of give a
I
more
might need to slow down
aesthetic.
time what Cloud is doing, so that way I can go over to Aerith and not take control of her, but tell her to cast a spell.
Right.
I don't
And
know
then
if
go
you're going
back.
to need that for this game because
Sure.
again, it's more just one character, snappy dodge, attack, and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, it'll definitely come down to like how it feels playing, but the potential it has, I'm excited. I guess I'm excited to see how it's used. Because
they also made it seem like they had this came up with this revolutionary thing called QuickTime events. And you like, and I'm like, oh, did you not learn? Like Resident Evil basically took those
right.
for the better.
Not really anything.
And here Final Fantasy is throwing them.
Look at this brand new
and
thing.
Like I don't want to mash square to get this assassin from stabbing me with his knife. Like that's silly. It's just cinematic silliness. Like it doesn't add anything. Like it doesn't.
How are you feeling about the icon battles? Do you have the big giant set piece?
So I'm split on this. And when you and I were texting about this the other day, I said like this game is kind of Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns, but it's also kind of like this game, but it's also kind of but it's also kind of like Nier Automata. This is where that Nier Automata-ness comes in for me, where Nier was great about when things were starting to get stale. They would throw in something to really like spice it up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I felt about the icon battles. We're like, here you have this. You've probably been like open worlding, and it's a little samey and whatnot. So this is something that's going to keep it fresh. In some capacity, I think it is really cool, but in another way, like, is also just flashy, you know, and like one of those Titans was so big.
Oh my gosh! I think it was literally Titan.
Ifrit is super like Ifrit's the size of a castle, like here a city. He's huge. And then there's that one, what was it like?
I think it was literally. I thought it was literally Titan. Yeah, like the more Earth.
But there's one more. There's like one more Titan. I don't remember. It's like Titan something. I don't remember what his name is completely. It'll be in.
But he makes Ifrit look tiny.
Yeah, he makes him look tiny, and it's like, how this thing is the size of a planet. Oh yeah, what's the game that you said?
Asura's Wrath, which I haven't played, but it's just like a big giant QuickTime event game where you're like giant god against god, from my understanding.
Yeah, it's not just QuickTime. Like it is also like
or a
this
lot of
kind
QuickTime,
of game where you're fighting. But yeah, it was a lot of QuickTime. So in some capacity, like, it's neat, and it'll definitely like keep you up, but I think that was also the worst parts of Final Fantasy 15 when they did that.
Sure. Yeah,
like when you were
I didn't really
fighting
care for them.
and Leviathan's there, or like Titan in there again, where literally Gladio comes and blocks Titan's enormous fist with his big sword, but not big in comparison to Titan.
Right.
So
he just
it doesn't
flick him away. One thing I'm a little curious about in terms of the battles is I guess we don't know entirely how the game's going to work with the icons, but will there be a point where you're able to control like multiple? So how does the game decide which one you become to fight the next one? Like,
I think it's picking for you,
right?
That's the impression I got. That's the impression I get.
But I'm just like I wonder if there will be like a story element as to why Clive is going to be X icon against this icon. So I'm a little curious how they're gonna maneuver that with the story, but I'm excited, but it almost seems like it's something like maybe I would just rather watch this. But we'll see how it plays out.
Give me a instead of a long it's gonna be flashy padding for sure. You were talking about that ring.
Yes.
That kind of like lets you customize your characters. Let's go quickly through some of the mechanics in the game that we kind of got a quick snippet on. Obviously, we can't talk too much about them because we don't know about them completely. Entirely. Some of these things were also where the game was just kind of like maybe this is a little bit of a ripe. And this is why. So one of the things we saw, you get to customize equipment.
Yes,
and it's fine. It's there.
Yeah, it seems and like many other games.
And you get to build your character based on accessories, and some of them can make the game easier, which again,
Good for
Just
you if
something
you
that
suck at
see.
games. But
Yeah, basically. And then what was another one that we saw in there?
it really dove into the skill trees and the abilities, and you either being able to pick your like unlock the abilities that you want, or you can let the game choose for you, which is kind of nice because sometimes I get a
Don't
little
you think letting the
overwhelmed,
game
but...
choose for you is worse though? Because then you have to find out what
Sure,
the game
but at
actually
least
chose for you. Like you still have to learn it
right.
and what it is.
I obviously it'll determine how it plays, but when it was showing the skill tree, I was like, there are a lot of different things. I almost feel like I tend to get a little overwhelmed easily in games where there's a lot of like move set options in these more action RPG games. So I'm a little nervous that I'm gonna get a little like I don't know what to like I'm gonna get stuck just using the same 4 things because I'm too nervous to try something new.
Well, but that's a fine thing because you can.
Sure.
I also think that they did the thing that kind of Kingdom Hearts kind of did, where like you throw in all the like it'll basically link every single thing that you have.
Sure.
I think it said that was an option too with
with like combo.
If you're
like
nervous
comboing.
about it, yeah, it'll
Automatic
pick the combo
yes.
for you. I also think that is also very silly.
Yeah,
you know,
and
like
maybe on the same note, there's like one of the rings, accessibility rings, that like you only have to press one button, but it will do like a string of different abilities. I imagine like just like as a set, you'll just keep hitting X or R1 or whatever it is, and you'll do like 6 different moves, but it'll just sort of cycle through them for you if you don't feel dexterous around your controller. I don't know, it's a little goofy.
So to me, like all of these things are a bit of a ripe.
Sure.
For me, like I think Square Enix is struggling still with finding Final Fantasy's identity.
Sure.
Where it's more like let's pivot and do something new, or let's pivot and do what other people are doing. And you can tell because like these are not the next thing.
Yeah,
like
it seems
graphically
like yes.
It's there, but like these mechanics that we're getting are very like that game and that game and that game do it. Like you're not giving me anything special.
Right.
Like what is special about this game?
I think what they're trying to do is make money and make it more accessible, because I think they even opened the state of play with saying like, this is a game. I mean, obviously explaining how Final Fantasy works, where you don't have to have played the previous games, but like that was like I think like literally the first thing they said, because I think they're trying to get new people in, because I mean Square's has had, I mean Forspoken was a little iffy, so you know they've had their ups and downs recently, so I think they're really banking on hitting a more general audience and getting a more general audience excited for Final Fantasy. And they're I wouldn't say they're abandoning their old school fans, but I think they are trying to hit a broader audience with this one based on like marketing.
But here's the thing
stuff.
though, like the episode hasn't aired yet, but I recorded an episode with some Dragon Quest content creators.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talked about is Final Fantasy versus Dragon Quest, and how Final Fantasy has never kept its identity, and that's probably why they struggle so much. And that's probably why Final Fantasy XIV is so successful, because it is.
Oh, sure.
Like, I think the only thing about Final Fantasy XIV where it doesn't necessarily keep a consistent identity is just the fact that it's an online game. Aside from that, it is very Final Fantasy.
Yes.
But Dragon Quest has consistently kept their identity.
Yeah, it's been very
pretty much the same.
The same with a little bit of tweaks.
Yeah, well, and I say like refining. Like, Dragon Quest XI
phrase.
is just one of the best
incredible
turn-based RPGs ever made. Like, for so many different reasons, that it's sad that Square Enix with Final Fantasy can't do the same thing.
Sure.
You know, like they can't, they couldn't have honed that in, because again, like you could have taken the name Final Fantasy off of this game and then just stripped down some of the monsters to just be a little bit more generic, and I couldn't have told you that this wasn't a Final Fantasy game.
That makes sense.
And I think that's really sad, because it just doesn't have that, like, this is a series. And like, to make games more approachable, does not mean you should boil it down to this base level of this is what everyone else is doing, because it kind of becomes that, like, now I'm just playing a game because has gamey things.
Yeah,
you know, that like that like that's a ripe. And the last thing that I want to talk about, which is a hype for me, and it's a potential hype, is the story. And I think this might be what saves the game overall. We don't know much.
Yeah, not a ton. Very political, almost Final Fantasy 12-esque, warring nations, leaders.
But what we do have has that potential to like make up for some of these, like, okay, this is what everyone else is doing. There's something exciting going on with this story of like you said, there's a political intrigue versus this super radical high fantasy, which you would see in like 13, where it's just so like meta and over the top.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
I
it seems
need
a
an
little more
encyclopedia
grounded.
just
It's like
to,
a fantasy world with a more grounded story about people, and maybe what they can turn into, but like nothing too crazy.
And in our Discord group, I know recently we were talking about like Lady Lunafreya in Final Fantasy 15 and how she like really doesn't matter. Yeah. I hope they've learned from this, where like characters matter, people matter, growth and development matter, so we can see some of these things that excite us and want to play, because it's not the systems that are going to keep us there overall. It really is the story. And I think this one might have the potential, and we don't, and I think it's good that we don't know too much, because maybe it is like this is what they really were, the final piece. You know what I mean? Like this was it. This is what's going to grasp you the most. So it's a potential hype for me.
Yeah.
Is it the same for you?
Yeah, my biggest like initial concern is, I wouldn't say it's necessarily Clive himself and what we've seen of him, but that the story is definitely going to really hinge on him, since he is the main character. He is really he's the only person you're going to control. Obviously you'll have guest party members, but he just has to be really well written, well acted, well voice acted. And I'm excited that the game's going to explore like his teens, his 20s, and his 30s, kind of like we saw with Noctis a little bit. And I did like Noctis.
It's weird how it's a flashback though. Like, why not just make it a linear story?
Sure, I'm sure they have their reasons, and we'll see. But I do prefer like starting. It would be cool to start with, but. I think mostly
that's
a
where
hype.
the disappointment comes. I think that's where the disappointment comes for the characters too, and not having multiple party members. Where like, if I have characters that are gonna like Tifa, Aerith, Barrett, like people who are gonna be with me through most of the game, if they don't get stabbed through with the katana, you know, like you get to see them grow and change and whatnot. And we don't know if these guest characters are going to be with them. They're probably not going to be with the main character for too long.
Right.
Sections.
Except Torgal.
So that's
they
where a
kill
little
him.
that concerns. Yeah, but is the pupper's really gonna like? I'm
right, he's not gonna have development. No, unless he can talk, and they just haven't revealed it yet. But
well, Casey, I think that about does it on our discussion of Final Fantasy 16.
Yes, I was gonna say one more thing. I was kind of hoping that they would reveal that they moved the release date earlier, because they keep talking about how it's ready, and I'm just like, well, then give it to us. Come on. It's not gonna. It didn't happen.
I don't think they don't want to compete with
Zelda,
Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah,
like a month. They will lose. I honestly think, because
I think so too.
Tears of the Kingdom slaying the game. Like that game is going to be incredible. I don't think they want to. So I think they're smart. They're sandwiched between Baldur's Gate 3 and Tears of the Kingdom. So people will probably have finished Tears of the Kingdom at that point. Yeah. It gives them a little time to like be like, okay,
need a breather.
These releases. So I think it was wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gamers, we want to thank you for your time. If you like seeing this content and you want to be a part of the conversation, head on over to our Discord at RPGaymer and leave some comments about your thoughts on Final Fantasy 16. We'll see ya.
Goodbye.